Hey there, gorgeous souls. This is your video lesson for the Galactic Guides kit. I know that I say this every time I make one of these videos, but I'm very excited about this topic. I'm very excited about sharing my opinions, my knowledge, my thoughts and my experiences with this topic with you. As with everything that I teach about and share about, please take what resonates and leave the rest. There is so much information out there about galactic beings and galactic guides, and so much of that information I personally feel comes from like one person's experience. I could write a book on what galactic guides are and what these different beings look like and what they can do for us, but it would all just be from my perspective and from my experience. And very often when we're working with these sorts of energies, or with any energies, any guides, any angels, they appear to us in the way that is right for us at the time. They help us with the thing that we need help with at that time, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's how they're going to work with every person. So it's my intention with this kit that the video lesson is really just about my thoughts, my experiences, my personal journey with galactic guides, in the hopes that it will inspire you to walk your own path with your own galactic guides in the way that is right for you. So that's why we have the video lesson, which is me just sharing what I know, what I think, what I've experienced. We have the workbook where you can work out what you think. And then we have the meditation where you can go on a journey and you can really experience these energies for yourself. So one thing I wanted to mention before we really get started into the content, and I have to tell you at this point, this may be a long one. I have written an essay on things that I want to say and share in this video. You might like to go and just pause this for a second, go and make yourself a cup of tea, grab your journal. If you're very time poor at the moment, you might like to be making dinner while you're listening to this, while you're watching this. You might be doing the ironing, I don't know. Make it work for you, but this may be a long one. Although usually I say I try to make them short and they end up being really long, so I don't know. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention was that I'm actually filming this video on the 8th of the 8th, which is the Lion's Portal, and I hadn't, the Lion's Gate portal, I hadn't expected to, I didn't plan this. I just kind of looked at my week and I thought, okay, that seems like a good day to do videos, so this is my video day, and it just kind of happened to be that it's the Lion's Gate. If you're not familiar with what the Lion's Gate is, I did just post a video to my Instagram, not my stories, my Instagram TV, so that will stay up there. But essentially it is a time in which the Sun, the Earth, and the Sirius star system line up, and we have this activation of beautiful Sirian energy, high vibrational energy, which really, you know, in these times, yes, we are connected to the Sirian beings and the Sirius star system, but it's very much a time of like leveling up spiritually, emotionally, energetically, all of that good stuff. So by the time you're watching this video, we will have moved out of the Lion's Gate, but I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was really cool, and I'm hoping that because I'm making this on that day, it's going to bring through some of that energy as well. So even though it will be past by the time you watch this, all those good vibes are coming through the Lion's Gate, through this video for you today, whenever you happen to be watching this. Okay, so let's begin, and let's start with a basic definition, I guess, of what galactic guides are. Essentially, galactic guides are light beings who come from or work with the consciousness of different planets and star systems. So we have a lot of different beings and energies that we can work with and that we have access to. So we have the excuse me, we have the fairy realm, who are very connected to the earth. We have the fairies, the all sorts of different elementals. We have mer energy. We have the angels in the angelic realm, and ascended masters who have had experiences here on earth, and then they have moved through those experiences and ascended to be ascended masters because they've ascended their earthly experience and their earthly process. And then we have, did I say the angels in the angelic realms? We have so many different beings that we can work with, and basically the galactic guides are the beings who are galactic that we can work with. So how are they different to some of our other guides and angels and energies that we work with? I feel like many of the galactic guides who are working with us at this time are here to help us really raise the consciousness of the planet. And most of our guides and angels that we work with are doing that. They're all helping us to level up. They're all helping us. The cats have just dropped something. They're all helping us level up. They're all helping us to open our heart chakra. They're all helping us with that work. But I feel like the galactic guides really have a vested interest in us. They they've been watching us for a really long time, and my personal opinion is they're a little bit concerned about like what's going on this planet right now. They want us to move into more love-based energies, and I think one of the big reasons they're helping us do this is because they have done it. They have moved through these dimensional levels. They've moved through these shifts. They've moved through lower energies into higher energies, and I'll talk a bit more about this later, but it's the reason that they're here is to help our planet, to help us and to help our planet, which again is so many of the beings that we work with. But I feel like the energy is a bit different of why they really want to work with us and help us at this time. So many of these guides, they do have a similar energy to our angels and our masters and other beings of light that we work with. They do have, they do feel, to me, they feel very, very high vibrational. They feel really similar sometimes to me to the energies of the angelic realm. Just that high vibrational light and love energy, like that's how they feel to me. They do feel slightly different than the angelic realm, but at the same time, we can maybe have a discussion with this in the group if you're in the Facebook group. It has been suggested, and I've had conversations with people about this too, that the galactic guides are really a part of the angelic kingdom, or that perhaps even our angels and archangels are actually from a different star system, and that they're here guiding us in that way. We know that it's said that the angels are beings from source who are sort of between us and source energy, so that we can really connect with that in an easier way. But the way I see it is we're all aspects of source energy, whether we are from a different planet, whether we're here, whether we're, your passed over loved ones. We are all elements of source. We're all part of creator energy. So I don't know, that could be a conversation that we have a little bit later if you feel called to kind of dive into that. But essentially, it's a slightly different energy. For me, it feels like a slightly different energy, but at the same time, it's very high vibrational and it feels really good. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit more about why they want to work with us at this time, and why they might want to do that. So my personal feeling with the galactic guides that I've connected with is they're very based in love consciousness, and they've moved through their own journey to get there. They're also seeing the potential of the destruction of our planet. They're seeing the things that we're doing at the moment that are, we're hurting our planet, we're hurting ourselves, basically, and they are concerned. They've seen other planets destruct. they've seen other beings, you know, wipe themselves out, and they're like, we don't want that to happen to you as well. So some people kind of ask this question of like, yeah, but why? Like, why do they want to help us? Like, what's in it for them? I feel like when you're in love-based consciousness, you don't ask those questions really. You don't ask the question of what's in it for me. I feel like it's a really similar energy to when we connect with animals and small children, and we just naturally want to look after these beings. We don't see a cat or a dog on the street who is suffering. We don't see them and think, oh, what's in it for me to help this person, this animal. We just go and help. And I feel like that's kind of how it is with our galactic guides. They're not interested in what is in it for them. It's just that they are in love-based consciousness, so they're thinking from that place of like, we see that we see that someone needs our help, so we are here bringing our help to that. I feel like our galactic guides are kind of like our big siblings in the sky. They have more wisdom and knowledge and experience than we do, and they can help us to shift more into the energies of love and light and wisdom and all the good things. So how can they help and guide us? So these beings can assist us with many, many different things, and depending on where they are from and what's going on for you in your life, they will probably have very different reasons for being with you. Some of the main reasons that they might come in, your galactic guides, is to help you to move more into love-based consciousness, to help you open up your heart chakra. Also to help you open up and activate your higher chakras, your transcendental chakras, so your chakras that are actually not physically in your body, but are like, in the layers of your aura, especially the ones that connect you to your higher self, to your angels and guides, to source energy. Like they're really great at like helping us to clear and activate those higher chakras. And they can also really help us with our life purpose work, connecting to our purpose, our reason for being here. They have a reason for being here, which is very much about helping us move it more into love. And for many of us, that is the same reason that we're here. We're just doing it incarnated in bodies. Well, they're doing it from a energetic perspective, but we need both. We need our beings to be here in energetic form to help guide us and help shift the energies, but we also need people on the ground doing the work in 3D form as well. Lucky us. They can also help you to understand why you're here, like what is your purpose, like what are you really supposed to be doing here. They can also really help us with healing. I've experienced quite a few times some pretty deep healing when I've called in my galactic guides. I've seen them do all sorts of things on me. I've actually had some experiences where I've called in my galactic guides and they've done what is often referred to as like psychic surgery on me. This one time I saw them sort of do like Reiki on my energy, and they pulled out this sort of black ball of sludge out of like one of my chakras. It was very vivid and very like, oh yeah, I felt so much better after they did that. That they can help you with energy healing. If you can't afford to get a Reiki treatment, call on your galactic guides and ask them for some of their assistance, and see what they can do for you. And another reason that they're here as well that is really nice is that they can really help you feel supported and like you're not alone in the universe. Sometimes, especially for you resonate as starseeds, and I'm going to talk about what that means a little bit more in a minute, but a lot of us who do kind of resonate as starseeds and light workers and empaths, we sometimes feel very isolated and very alone. Like we struggle to form really strong bonds of attachment with people because people don't understand us or they don't get us. And so working with your star family, with your galactic guides, can really help you to kind of feel like, okay, I'm not alone in the universe after all. So how can we connect with them? Everybody wants to know how. This is great. All this information is great, but how do I connect with them? There are so many different ways to connect with your galactic guides, and most of them are really similar to how you connect with your spirit guides, with your angels. I'm aware that some people watching this may not have a huge amount of experience connecting with spirit guides and angels, so I just kind of wanted to touch on this a little bit. I will share in the PDF a list of different things that you can do to connect. But some of the easiest ways to get started, first of all, just talk to them. You can go into meditation. Excuse me. You can just sit at your altar. You can be anywhere, close your eyes and just say, hey, galactic guides, I'm ready to connect with you. And then just start having a conversation with them. I feel like that's one of the most powerful ways that we can connect with these beings, whether it's our galactic guides or whether it is our angels, ancestors, whoever it is. The most powerful way we can do it is just to talk to them, and it doesn't have to always be this big ritual, this big song and dance. It can sometimes just be a conversation that you have over your morning coffee, inside your head, in your mind, or it can be you can speak out loud, you can write it down, whatever kind of works for you. So I feel like the biggest thing that you need to be doing when you're trying to connect with any guides at all is to just have the intention that that's what you want to do, and to ask them in. So just set the intention, yeah, I'm ready to connect with my galactic guides. This sounds great. And as soon as you kind of make that intention, you're opening up that space for them to be able to come in and start working with you. Hey. You can connect in meditation, you can connect in prayer, you can connect with your cards, pretty much all the usual ways that you would connect with yourself, your guides, etc., etc. And in our meditative journey with the kits, you will also be taken on a journey to meet with them and have some time with them as well. If the other things aren't working for you at the moment, if you feel like you're not getting anything, then have a go with the meditation and see how that goes for you. Okay, so let's talk about which galactic guides to connect with, and I got a long chunk of information here. Okay, so it's really up to you, like which galactic guides you choose to connect with. There are so many different galactic guides out there. There's just like so many different planet star systems. I mean, there are definitely beings from certain star systems who are helping us at this time, who are quite available to connect with. But I have seen in my work, I've seen people who connect with beings from galaxies that are so far, like, I've never heard of them. I don't know who these beings are. I don't know, how far away these beings are from. It's just, it's endless. Like, it's absolutely endless when you start thinking about different star systems, different planets, different beings that are out there in the universe. Like, our little human brains can't even process most of that. So I think that's why a lot of us go to the sort of main groups. I feel like the main groups are actually, they're very present here, so they're quite easy to connect with. And again, other people are having experiences with those groups, so it's easier to kind of have those conversations and see what's coming through for other people. So you might like to work with the Syrians, who we are actually working with today. I do feel like their energy is very present. I have a real connection with the Syrians. I think I'm putting the notes to talk a bit more about that later. There is the Palladian energy, which you have probably heard of. The Palladian energy is really, really beautiful. People are at the moment working with the Arcturian energy. Andromeda, Lyra. Those are some of the main ones, but you know, there's a massive list of like different star systems and beings that you can be working with. Don't overwhelm yourself with that, is my advice. If this is all brand new to you, don't worry too much. I mean, it's not even essential that you even know where your galactic guide is from. It really isn't. And they may give you a name for their star system that is like completely different from what, you know, they might not call their star system Sirius. They might have a different name for a certain planet or part of a planet or whatever. I think we can get a little bit hung up on labeling when it comes to galactic guides, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail when we talk about star seeds as well. But my advice is to just be open to whatever energy comes through and whatever you feel called to work with. So if you particularly feel like, or there's something about this Palladian star system, maybe you don't know a lot about it, maybe you already do know a little bit about it, but you feel really strongly connected to that star system, then work with that star system for a while and see how it goes. It can be really overwhelming to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to work with the Sirians and the Palladians and the Lyrans, and I'm going to call in these other beings from this other place. It can get a little bit like, I don't even know who's here anymore. So like choose one group, or let one group come in and work with them for a while and see how that feels, and then explore some of the other ones. You can, if you like, start off by doing some research online into some of these different groups and see who really resonates with you, and call them in and start working with them. Sometimes these beings come through in a meditation. It's really clear and obvious who they are. It's great. Okay, yep, Palladians are here. Excellent. Those are the beings I need to be working with right now. Sometimes we do the meditation and we sort of feel an energy, but it's not as clear. Like we don't get a name or a visual. So sometimes having a bit of a Google and just kind of asking yourself, you know, which one of these groups and these star systems do you feel called to work with, whether you agree with the information that's out there about them or not. Like, where are you feeling called to kind of put your energy and your intention? Okay, so it's really important to be aware that a lot of the information online about these groups and these different star systems is very basic, and it's very much based on one person's experience. So people often say things like, beings from Sirius look like this, and you know, my favorite one that always kind of cracks me up is Palladians have blonde hair. And if you are a Palladian starseed, you will also have blonde hair and very white skin, and that sort of stuff. Just, you know, I can't get on board with that. To me, it's like saying, you know, every being on the planet Earth is, you know, a white male. It's like, that's not true. Not only are there so many different races and cultures and appearances that people have and genders, there's also animals and insects and viruses, and there's all sorts of like organisms and creatures here. So to kind of say, oh, we all have blonde hair and we all look like this, to me, I just like, I can't get on board with that. For you, maybe it really resonates, so go with what resonates for you. But I think we need to be mindful of the fact that with all the different energies and different creatures and beings that we have here on planet Earth, imagine a whole star system, and in a star system you have more than one planet as well. I think some people kind of forget that. They're like, oh, this is the star system, and so, you know, we've got this one sort of planet that's like Earth in this star system. Well, actually, in a star system you'll have many planets, and so there's going to be different beings on different planets. Why they're all going to have blonde hair is just like, it just kind of doesn't work for me. And this is why I feel like when people are sharing this information, they're really sharing it from this place of, well, I had a meditation and the Sirians came through for me as this group of beings with blonde hair. That's great if that's how they appear to you, but that's not necessarily like the truth of what they really look like. And actually, they're just saying now as well, they're like, in truth, many of these beings are light beings and they don't even have a physical form. So of course they're just showing up in the way that people are going to be able to understand them. And they show up as well in the way that is going to feel safe for us. So if for somebody, you know, a group of beings who look very Nordic and blonde show up in your meditation, it's going to probably feel really safe for some people, maybe not for other people. And that's great, but that's not how they're going to appear to everybody, and it's certainly not how they necessarily really look. I may be wrong. I might go to my next incarnation on the Pleiades and realize everybody does have blonde hair here, but I feel like it's pretty unlikely. You have to make up your own mind about this stuff, of course. Okay, so that was a bit of a rant. So many of these beings are part of what we call a group consciousness. So when you're working with these group consciousnesses, they do tend to come through as kind of like one voice or one kind of like one energy. So it's like, this is the for example, like the 9th dimensional Syrians will come in and they will kind of speak with one voice. That doesn't mean that they are just one person. What that means is that they are speaking with one voice. And what I kind of feel like, for me, how I connect with these group consciousnesses is I think about them as kind of like a community where they all have a commonality. Or, for example, a band, when a band is playing or an orchestra is playing, and you have all of the individual instruments who are all coming together to make this piece of music and to pass on this message to you, and yet each being in that group has a different personality, has a different role, has different wisdom to share. So even if you're connecting with them as a group, remember that they all still have their individuality within that group as well. Okay, a note on dimensions. So I have sort of briefly mentioned a few different things. I've mentioned the, what have I mentioned? I've mentioned the 9th dimensional Syrians, 9th dimensional Palladians. They're the ones that I seem to work with, I think. Although I feel like there's 12th dimensional ones as well. Anyway, we could talk about that all day. But I just kind of wanted to, for anybody who's not familiar with this kind of way of talking about energy, I just wanted to kind of explain this a little bit, or at least explain it in the way that, you know, I understand it anyway. So basically here on Earth, we are very 3D at the moment. And when we're in 3D, we're very concerned with the physical. Obviously, that's why it's 3D, right? We're very concerned with the physical, we're very concerned with our physical body, our physical life, our money, and where we're going to get our food from. We're very concerned with those things when we're in 3D. Now we at the moment are moving into 5D through the 4th dimension. When we get to the 5th dimension, we're all going to be more conscious and aware. We are going to have a new level of consciousness that will ask these questions of, you know, what am I really doing here? What's really happening to this planet? How can I help? Like, how did we get here? There's a big, they kind of describe it to me as a real like lifting of the veil when we get to 5D. We really start to understand some of the deeper truths and see through some of the illusions that we've been very like closed down to in the 3rd dimension. My understanding of the 4th dimension is it's all about the reconnecting to the heart chakra and opening up the heart chakra. So many of you who are listening to this, you're already moving through the 4th into the 5th. A lot of us feel like actually we're in the 5th quite a lot, and then something will bring us back down into 3D. Anyone experience that? I know I have. I'm like, oh, 5D, and I feel so good, and then I get in the car and I, you know, someone cuts me off in traffic, and I'm like, suddenly feeling very human again. But it is a process, and so this is, you know, this is where we are at the moment. Even the most awakened, ascended of us, although there probably are people who are here who are past 5D, but they are, you know, having having a very different experience than the majority of us. And even those of us who are doing the spiritual work and we are very conscious and awake, we're still only going through that process. We're still trying to get to 5D. We're still we're still moving towards that. And I feel like a lot of us here are doing that work so that more and more people can come behind us, and we're making it easier for others to, okay guys, I pulled this down, like let's go and have a look. This veil has been removed. Let's come and see what it is. I feel like that's like a big part of our job at the moment. So eventually we then start to move up through the different, like essentially I feel like the dimensions are really like levels of consciousness, and the higher we go in those levels of consciousness, the closer we're getting to source energy and God, whatever you want to call that, the closer we're getting to remembering our God self, basically. And so when you have those little moments, you might experience them in meditation or just randomly throughout the day, where you feel like, oh, I feel so connected to Source right now. I feel so connected to God. I feel so much a part of it. And I just remember in this moment that we're all one, and like unity consciousness, and everything is connected, and this feels so good. Like those sorts of moments, like that's higher dimensional stuff, and it's difficult to stay in those energies for any length of time right now, because we are living on a 3D planet, and so many people here are like in the 3D, so it's really hard to kind of like go to those places and stay at those places. But that's kind of what we're working on. For me, I feel like this is what the ascension journey is. If you haven't heard much about the ascension path, it's ultimately this. It's ultimately that we are trying to get to these higher levels of consciousness, these higher levels of love. I feel like for a long time we talked about these levels of consciousness as like wisdom and understanding, that very masculine way of looking at the dimensions, like, oh, when we move up to this level, we'll know more, and then we'll move up to this level and we'll know more. But actually, I feel like it's partly that we are learning more and we're growing as souls, and we are expanding our consciousness and our awareness and our knowledge and wisdom, but we're also expanding and growing and pushing up our ability to open our heart chakra and love and be in that love-based consciousness. Did that explain it? There's a couple more things to say. I very much feel like sometimes we like to see things as very linear as human beings, because it helps us to understand. So it's not wrong to do that. It's just not always exactly how it is. So for some of us who are moving through these dimensions, it can be easy to kind of get into your ego about it a little bit, and to think, oh, well, I'm working in 5D, and like my next door neighbor is so 3D right now. And I just can't handle it. Like, I wish they would level up to 5D with me, and then like, maybe we can get along better. There's a lot of a temptation to kind of get into ego whenever we're looking at linear progressions, and we're looking at, well, I'm moving upwards. It's our sort of human ego state to be like, oh, I'm higher than that person down there. But I think it's really important that we just be conscious about any thoughts that we're kind of experiencing around that. I have seen some very, very high dimensional energies working at 3D in this lifetime, really stepping into the fear-based 3D, because 3D is very fear-based. It's very much about survival and fear. And you know what? There are people on this planet who are in that survival energy, because that is, that's their life. Like, that's what they're experiencing. For most of us, if you're watching this video, you're probably not in survival mode. You're probably moving out of that into, well, my bills are paid, there's food on the table. Even if it's not always that easy to do that, maybe it's still a struggle. Maybe you're still struggling through that stuff at times. I think most of us are struggling with our money stuff from time to time. But ultimately, you're not solely focused on that. There are people who are, and that's their journey, and that's You know, I don't want to say like that's their journey, they chose that. You know, I don't really know why people are struggling and suffering so much. I feel like there's partly a choice, but I feel like a lot of the time the choice is not their choice, it's oftentimes our choice of, well, what are we going to do when we see that? If we're not in that energy and we're able to help, how are we going to do that? It's opportunity for others to find more love and to help each other. We can talk about that forever. So many of the things that come up in these videos, I'm like, well, let's make a whole nother video about that topic. But also, you know, there are higher dimensional beings who drop down into the 3D to have that experience. There are people walking among us now who are, you know, already at 12D, at 21st dimension, whatever, but they've chosen to incarnate it back into 3D to really help us out. So a lot of those souls, I feel like, have said, okay, you know what, all this work I've been doing over all of this time, I'm going to go back here and start over because I want to help these beings through that. So just because you see someone who appears to be very 3D doesn't mean that they're actually not like a 21st dimensional soul who's come back to experience a bit of fear and to try to help the collective consciousness, the collective, you know, awakening of the planet. Okay. So basically with all this talk of dimensions and stuff, can get a little bit weird, and it can be a bit like, I don't know if I'm really, like, get it. I don't know if it really means that much to me. It doesn't have to. It's really just another way of trying to explain the ascension process, the leveling up, the returning back to love, basically. That's what it is. It's a way to describe that process of moving out of love back into love. So that's it, really. Okay, so how do our galactic guides appear to us? This is really similar to, you know, like any of your guides, how any of your guides appear to you. They will appear in whatever way is right for you in that time. As I said, most of the galactic beings that we work with, they don't have physical bodies. If we're working with those 9th dimensional, 12th dimensional sort of frequencies and energies, they don't have like a 3D body in the way that we do. So when they appear to us as the group of Nordic aliens with all blonde hair, that's not necessarily what they really look like. I've heard it described as a, what they will do is, like light beings have a very fast spinning aura. Their energy is very fast spinning, and what they do when they meet us is they slow it down so that they can appear in physical form, and they will appear in whatever way works for you. They may appear in human form, they may appear with blonde hair, they may appear to you as whatever you think an ET sort of being is going to appear as. If you see them as a sort of like a grey alien, and you know, if that makes sense to you, then that might be how they show themselves to you. You may just see them as lights. You may see them as a light being. You may just see, like, sense some light in front of you, or a ball of light, or a shape of light. You may just see colours. You may see stars. You may see all sorts of different things. You may hear a sound, or you may not hear or see anything, but you just have a sense that they're with you. To be honest, most of the time when I'm working with my guides and angels, they're not appearing to me in full physical form, like, this is what I look like, I'm beaming down and I'm going to tell you these things. Most of the time they're just downloading messages into my head, and we're not, you know, they're not showing me this big whole beautiful scene. I mean, that happens sometimes, but most of the time they're just chatting to me and just telling me stuff. So however they appear to you is exactly how it's right for them to appear to you and for you to be able to connect with them. So I often work with a group of beings who I believe may be Syrian, but they haven't exactly told me that. And I feel like they are sort of on the same page as me in terms of when, you know, they're like, well, you could describe us as Syrian, but they're, you know, we sort of fit into that box, but we don't really. I feel like they're sort of more galactic travelers, and that they are kind of like from all over. This is one thing that people say as well, is that Syrians are blue. And while I do feel like there is a very blue sort of connection with the Sirius energy, it's sort of like saying that planet Earth is blue and green, and that's like the colors. But that doesn't mean all the beings from here are going to be blue and green. But they may come through showing themselves as blue to you, so that you make that connection. If you've heard somewhere that they're blue and they come through as blue, it might be just to show you, yes, this is a sign. This is our way of showing you, yes, we are the Syrians. So yeah, I work with them a lot, and they're pretty great. I also work with the Palladian energy, and the Palladians, they came through for me a couple of times, and they appeared to me as E.T. from the movie E.T., like the E.T. being, the E.T. alien. They appeared to me like in his form, but they sort of had all lights behind him. And that sort of was like a really nice way that they came through, because I love E.T. I think E.T. is the cutest guy. And so when they came through and showed me that image, I just felt so safe and held, that was the sort of E.T. energy I was connecting with. I was like, this is beautiful. This feels really good. I like this a lot. So yeah, so that's how they came through at that time, and that felt really nice. With the lights behind, I felt like it was showing me that actually it was one of the collective consciousnesses of that planet. I know that they don't really look like ET, but they came through in that way so that I could connect with them, and I think that's really cool. I have another guide who works with me who is also blue, and he's bald, and he is just like he looks like a sort of just a man, like a blue man. He's a different blue to the other guides, but he looks just like like a human man, whereas my other blue guides tend to be, they're very long, and they're really, really tall, and they're really thin, and have like really long hands, and yeah, they don't look, I mean, they're sort of human wood, but they're way skinnier and taller than us. Whereas the other guide I have is, he looks more human. I don't feel like they're necessarily the same energies. He keeps telling me that he's going to tell me at some point where he's from, and it's all going to make sense, but that hasn't happened yet. I'm still waiting on that information. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to be a starseed and what that's all about. I sort of wasn't going to go too much into the starseed stuff in this kit, but I feel like if we're going to start working with Galactic Guides, we probably want to touch on this. So a starseed is someone who really just has a feeling that they're not from this planet, that their soul originated in, or was seeded in another planet, on another planet, or in another star system. Starseeds generally feel like they are aliens on this planet. We don't always feel very at home here. We tend to feel really misunderstood. We feel like nobody really understands us or gets us. We struggle with things like all the sort of 3D Earth stuff, like relationships. Money is something we struggle with a lot, because we don't have, it's like, we struggle with that stuff. And a lot of these other things that seem to come naturally to people who seem more sort of Earth-centric and Earth-based in their connection. So there's loads and loads of tests online that you can do that will tell you if you are a starseed or not. I've taken a lot of those tests, and some of them have told me, no, you're not a starseed, and I've been like, what? But I know I'm a starseed. Like, this is stupid. I think those tests are fun. I think they can be a lot of fun, but like, don't put too much of your hopes and dreams into those tests. Like, if they say that you're not a starseed, but you feel like you are one, then you are one. I feel like anybody who feels like, hears the word starseed and hears that, oh, it's about, you feel like your soul doesn't originate on this planet, and you're like, that's me, then you're a starseed. In my humble opinion, that's all it takes to know if you're a starseed or not. Some of these quizzes have like these really interesting questions, like, you know, does your body temperature run high or low? Did you have a traumatic experience when you were like 6 years old? You know, like all these questions. It's like, yeah. So I don't know. Take those if they resonate with you, go for it. For me, it didn't resonate. For me, I was just like, I didn't tick all the starseed boxes. So I ticked some of them, but yeah, it didn't totally work out for me. I just feel like if you feel like there is a part of you that's aligned with this idea of being a starseed and aligned with different, you know, with the stars, if you feel aligned with the stars in some way, then you're probably a starseed. I also feel like the term starseed is a little bit confusing because I don't think it's necessarily. I feel like there's so many different things going on, and you know, in my work that I do one-to-one with people, I often tune into like where their soul is from, and there's just so many different answers to those questions that are really not as straightforward as like, oh, your soul's from Sirius, you're a Sirian starseed, off you go, goodbye. Because there may be people who are here on this planet right now who very much feel like they are earth seeds and that their soul was seeded here on the earth and they feel very, very connected to the earth. That doesn't mean that they haven't also spent time in the Sirius star system or the Pleiades, or all the other star systems. That doesn't mean they're not galactic travelers and that they haven't had these experiences on different planets. It just means that right now they feel very strongly connected with the earth, or they feel like they're originally from the earth. So there's also, you know, there's this thing too where it's like, just because you're from a place doesn't mean that you don't have an alignment or an attachment in some way to different star systems. So I have been told a few years ago, and before I was told this, I felt very aligned to the Pleiades. And then I was told in a reading that I was from Sirius. And I had a lot of resistance. To that. I even wrote back to the person who did the reading for me, and I was like, "Are you sure? Can you check again? Because I'm pretty sure this is wrong." And then I said to her, like, you know, can you be from two places? Like, can you have a connection with two places? And she sort of said, "Well, maybe, I don't know. I've never seen that." And I said, "Okay." So I went and, you know, did my own kind of research and journey with that. And then I very recently had another person read for me, who's very aligned to these energies, who said, "Yeah, you're definitely Pleiadian." So it's like, what? I've just spent like the last 3 years connecting with the Sirians, like hard out, because I felt really like, okay, if I'm from there, I got to connect to them. I got to connect to this energy, which I did end up being freaking amazing, by the way. And now it's like, oh, but actually you've also got this Pleiadian connection too. The way I sort of say, well, first of all, there's a lot of beings who are like also moving through different star systems. So there can be a group who maybe is calling themselves Sirian right now, but they actually came from somewhere else through the Sirius star system so they could connect with us, for example. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're all like from there. The way that I think about this is, you know, the way that I feel like you know, who am I on this planet? Like, where am I from on this planet? When people ask me where I'm from, I sort of struggle to answer that question sometimes because, yes, I am Australian. I have an Australian accent, sort of, although it's not as strong as it used to be. But I live in the UK and I've been here for nearly 10 years now. My dad was from the UK. My mum is half British, half Russian, but she was born in Africa and grew up in Africa. So she's sort of like, well, Africa feels like her home a lot as well. And, well, yeah, I'm Australian because I was born there, but I have all of this, like, history that's actually very connected to other parts of this planet. And I feel like that's a perfect sort of metaphor, analogy for how these star systems work. You could have your soul be seated on Sirius, but whoever's in charge of like dropping your soul into Sirius, like who are they? Like where do they come from? And then when you have your experience on Sirius, are you going to stay there forever, or are you like, you're going to be like a backpacker and be like, okay, I'm going to go off galactic traveling and find myself for a while, and you may end up in the Pleiades for 10 years, and then you may end up going somewhere else. So that's a sort of example of what I'm trying to say with this whole like where are you from thing. It's not as simple as just saying I'm Australian or I'm Syrian. It's like there's so many different things to take into account. So don't my advice with this is like, don't try to put yourself in one of these boxes, because I see this happen all the time online. Like, where are you from in the galaxy? Like, answer this 5-question quiz and I will tell you which star system you're from. I think those quizzes are really fun, and go for it if you want to have a go. Like, it can be a lot of fun, and sometimes it could be the thing that is exactly what you need, and you're just like, this is me. Like, this so resonates with me. And if that happens to you, go for it and take that. I feel like one thing that happens as well is that we align ourselves to different star systems at different times depending on what's going on in our life. So there was a time when I felt very much like, yes, I'm Palladian, like that's who I am, that's where I'm from. That's the energy that I want to work with. And then when I was told I was actually Syrian, I started to think, okay, well, maybe I'll tune into that energy and see what that's about. And then for a long time I felt like I'm Syrian starseed, that's who I am, that's what I'm about. And then recently I feel like there's actually connection for me with the Lyra star system, which I'm yet to fully dive into. But that feels like, okay, well, maybe I'm changing, maybe my energy's changing and shifting, and maybe actually right now in my life I'm more aligned to that star system. So don't get yourself in a box. Don't say that you're Syrian and that's it, and you're not gonna like you're not gonna hang out in any of the other places. Be open-minded, because it's not as simple as just like you're from this one place and you look like this and you have this appearance and these are your personality traits, the end. It's really not as simple as that. That stuff can be nice when you're feeling a little bit lost and you need those sort of like, you need to get yourself in a box because you're like, this is so overwhelming, Vix. Actually, I do just want to get into a box for a little while. Then go for it. Do one of those quizzes. Be like, okay, Sirius, yep, I'm going to go into the Sirius box for a little while. I'm Syrian. I'm just going to stay here and explore this. That's great. Do that. But just keep in the back of your mind that it's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that. Our little brains can't even like comprehend it. Okay, so looking at my notes, we've got one more thing to talk about. This is a big thing, and this is something that comes up for people a lot, whether you're working with galactic energies, galactic guides, or spirit guides in general, even with the angelic realm, generally spiritual stuff, and that is the fear factor. So there is a lot of fear that can come up when working with ET beings, when working with these galactic beings. There's a lot of reasons for this, but we have been we have been programmed to be fearful a little bit. We've certainly been programmed to be fearful of the greys. I don't know about you, but I used to have a huge fear of grey aliens, huge fear. It was in the 90s when people have seen them, right? Like, people have seen the greys. People used to talk a lot about these abductions that were going on, and they would always sort of be with these grey aliens. And then like the X-Files came out. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the original X-Files, but I remember that being out in the 90s, and I remember it being on at night, and I couldn't watch it at night because it used to terrify me, but I loved it. So I used to tape it on VHS. Yeah. I used to tape it, and then I would watch it like during daylight hours, because at night I would get so freaked out. I felt like I could see the grey aliens like at my window in my bedroom. I felt like they were outside, like just waiting to come and get me and take me away. I was very fearful. And I feel like part of that fear was coming from the collective. There was a lot of fear of, there's a lot of talk about abductions and the bad things that the aliens were doing to us at that time. There were some horrific things like animals were being decapitated, and like, you know, all this horrible stuff that was kind of going on at that time, and people were like, there's no explanation for this, and other people would say it's aliens. It felt like there was a lot of fear, especially of the Greys. Now, I personally feel like the Greys are very much on their own journey. They're very much like, I mean, you know, there's 3D consciousness where we're in survival, and then there's other things too, which are like a bit darker than that. But interestingly, the energy feels like it's really shifted since then. I don't have a fear of grey aliens now. And generally people don't talk about them. Generally people aren't really talking about their abductions in the way that they were in the 90s. I feel like something has shifted and changed with that. I feel like there's a lot more light on the planet now. I feel like there's a lot more light, there's a lot more protection, there is a lot more love. And so it's probably more difficult for those beings to come and hassle us. That's my opinion. That's my thoughts, what I sort of get around that. So there has been a lot of fear around the Greys. There's also been a lot of fear around the reptilians as well. We've sort of really been programmed to fear, reptilian energy, sort of these pictures that you see of reptilian aliens, you know, they look like dinosaurs, like they're all like creepy and like, you know, they don't look very loving. They're not like fluffy little loving creatures. So there's some fear around those as well, but there's also a lot of fear of just like, you know, who are these beings and why am I connecting with them? And, you know, like, what if they do want something from me? What if they aren't in alignment? So my personal belief is that not all galactic beings do have our best and highest good in their interest. And there are ways that we can make sure that what we're working with is of the highest love and light. Really, it's all about intention. So just asking that the Galactic Guides who are most in alignment with love and light, who are from the highest levels of love and light, that they come in for you. And this again is why the dimensions are useful, because you can ask for, I don't want anything lower than the 9th dimensional guides coming in. I don't want to work with guides who are also on the 5th dimension. I don't want to work with guides who are where I'm at. I want to work with guides who have done what I'm doing, who have like not only got to 5th dimension, but they've gone through 6, 7, 8, and now they're at 9 or 10 or 11 or 12, whatever, you know, whatever you feel called to do. Being discerning is everything. Being discerning is always everything. If you don't feel safe to do this work right now, then don't do it. Instead of doing this work on your fear stuff, work on your protection stuff, work on that, spend some time on that, and then come back to this when you feel like the time is right. With these kits, you always have access to the content. So if you're not ready to do it now, do it next month or the month after, or do it next year, or do it when you suddenly have this realization of, I feel like now is the time to meet my galactic guides. You don't have to do this month. You can do it whenever it feels right for you. Being discerning, but also noticing what you're putting out there is really, really important. So we do need to be discerning about what's coming in, but we also need to notice what we're putting out. I could not have done this work. I could not have started working with, or maybe I could have actually, but but generally we can't do this. We can't work with our spirit guides if we're scared of what's going to come through. We can't connect with our galactic guides from the highest levels of love and light if we're worried about what's going to come through, because we're bringing fear into that. And sometimes we can, if it's just a little bit, sometimes we can push through it and we can make our way through and it's okay. If it's really preventing us, I feel like sometimes if we go into meditation and we're in fear energy, we're only going to see scary stuff. And it's not necessarily because scary stuff is coming through, it's because that's what we're projecting, that's what we're putting into that space. So if you are feeling fearful or worried, like, let's talk about it. You can always talk on the group, you can always send me an email, let's have a chat and maybe move through some of that stuff and then go back to the work. So notice when you're blocking, notice, just be conscious of what you're bringing to the experience as well as what you're receiving. So I had an experience with reptilian energy and I full on went into fear about it, and I just thought it'd be fun to talk about that for a second. So it was in a meditation. I wasn't actively connecting with galactic beings at all, but I can't remember what meditation I was doing or what I was thinking about at the time, but anyway, I was in meditation and this vision flashed through my eyes, very, very clear, of these two reptilian beings, and it was just sort of like their torsos and their eyes and their faces, and I saw them flash up like so clearly in my mind's eye, and I immediately opened my eyes and went into fear, because I believed at that time that reptilian energy was dark, that it was low vibe, that it was low energy. And, I immediately went into, I need to protect myself from this. This is like, whatever this is that's trying to get to me, this is negative. I need to protect myself. So I went through that whole thing. Later on, like probably a year, maybe even 2 years after that happened, I had an experience with the dragons, who basically told me that they are reptilian energy that is on the path of ascension, and they have chosen to ascend, that they've chosen to open their heart chakras, they've chosen to be of service, they've chosen to move into love. And I started to realize through connecting with the dragon energy that whatever this reptilian thing was actually an opportunity for me to, like, yes, you need to be discerning, and if it doesn't feel safe, open your eyes, protect, do some smudging, whatever you've got to do. But actually that was an opportunity for me to choose love, and I chose fear. And we have those opportunities constantly, don't we? But it was, it was interesting. It was really interesting to move through that. And you can choose love and still choose not to interact with that energy. I could have just sent them some love and said thanks but no thanks, but instead I freaked myself out because I was so in the belief that, this is negative energy, this is dark forces trying to attack me or whatever. And that belief actually created more fear than if I had just stayed in that moment and said, even asked them, like, why are you here? And then just sent them some love and said, I don't feel comfortable working with you at the moment, but I'm going to send you some love and wish you well. Goodbye. So you have that choice, if you're in a meditation where something comes through and you're like, I'm not sure about this. I don't know who you are, but I send you love and I ask that you go. We can always do that. Everything is our choice in this work. We always have the choice to say yes or no. We always have the choice to say yes to Galactic Guides or no to Galactic Guides. The choice is yours. We have the choice to say yes to the higher dimensional Galactic Guides. I'm saying yes to galactic work, but I'm only saying yes to these beings up here, the very highest level of love and light guides that can come in for me. We have the choice to do that, and we have the choice to say no to anything else. What else do we need to say about fear? I feel like I've said quite a lot. So you can, again, I think I've said this before, but you can choose to just be really specific with the dimensions of the energies that you want to work with. I'm not working with anything less than 9th or 12th dimension. I don't usually, but sometimes things come through and it's useful. So one thing about working with these energies in these higher dimensions is it's kind of like, the way I like to see it is, you can ask your grandmother for advice about something that she has lived through, that she has been through, that she has experience with. You can ask her for advice, and it's coming from this place of, I've lived through that, I've experienced that, I can give you some advice. What you do with that advice is always up to you, always. You can take it or leave it, whether it's coming from your grandmother or your galactic guides. It's always up to you to take or leave the advice that comes through. But it's the difference between, like asking her for advice or asking a friend who's never experienced what you're going through, what they think and what advice they have for you. It's, you know, it could still be useful to ask them what they think, but ultimately asking someone who's been through it is a bit more useful, I think, than asking for someone. You know, I'm going to work with the Syrians who are at my level. I'm going to work with them and then sort of be like, oh, not totally sure about this. If this, you know, should I do that? I don't know. So it's always up to you. One last thing as well is to remember that all of these beings, no matter where they are from, like, they're all doing the work. Our spirit guides, our galactic guides, even some angels, are all on their own path. All these beings are all on their own path. Even the ascended masters are still on their path. They're still learning, they're still growing, they're still having their experiences. There really are no beings in this world, apart from if you're going straight to source, God, whatever you want to call it, who are not on their journey. Although just going through now is like, no, like God's still on the journey too. Like, we're all on the journey. So just keep that in mind, like when you're connecting with any guides, any beings, that they are helping you and supporting you, but ultimately they're still going through their own process. So anything that comes through that doesn't feel right for you, or you're like, oh, I'm not totally sure, you're under no obligation to follow through on any advice that comes through for you, whether it's your guides, your higher self probably knows you more best. It's not always a good idea to ignore advice that you get from your higher self, but you know, if it doesn't feel good, don't take action on it. If it doesn't feel good, don't, you know, just let it go. Ask yourself when you're working with these beings, with any beings, just ask yourself, does this feel like it's from fear or love? It's a really easy way to just check in. You know, does this feel like it's from fear or love? And does this feel like it's trying to scare me, or it's me scaring myself? Can be another question to ask, which is what I should have asked when I was working with when I had those reptilians come in. But just asking yourself, like, how does this feel? And be really honest with yourself. Like, how does this feel? Does this feel good? Does this feel like love? Does this advice feel loving? Or does it feel fearful? So an example of that may be if you're asking, should I leave my job, for example. If you get a message or guidance come through that says something to you like, you got to get out of there right now, something bad's going to happen, that's fear-based, and that is not your guides. That is not those higher dimensional guides. If you get a message saying it's not in your best and highest good to stay here, we will help support you in looking for a new job where you will be in alignment with your best and highest good, that's love. So have a think about like how those messages are coming through and how you're feeling. If it's ever making you feel scared, even if it's disguised as guidance, you've got to get out of here right now, something bad's going to happen. My guides never talk to me like that. Whenever I feel like that, that is fear. That is 100% fear. So yeah, hopefully that helps you if you're having any fear stuff coming up. And just remember, a lot of the time with fear, it is coming from us. The fear comes from us, and we always have the power to choose a different experience. And when we are in fear, to just say, hang on, maybe I can move into love here. But you know, always keep yourself safe, always be discerning. But in my experience, in my humble opinion, the galactic guides that I work with are so high vibrational. They're just like the archangels. They're just like our ascended masters. They are very high vibrational. They are here to help us. They are here to help us to remember who we are, to remember our own power, to remember our own ability to really open up our hearts to ourselves and our loved ones in this life and this experience. And they really want to support us in living a life full of purpose and love and joy, and they want us to have a good time here, but they want us to do the work as well, and that's what they're really here to help us with. So hopefully that wasn't too long and tedious. I hope that that's given you some good stuff to work with in terms of connecting with your galactic guides. Like I said at the beginning, please take what has resonated and leave anything that didn't feel useful to you or didn't feel in alignment with the way that you think about Galactic Guides, enjoy your workbook, enjoy your meditation. If you have any questions at all, you can come into the group if you're in the circle. If you have anything sort of stressing you out in any way, please come and send me an email. I don't like officially offer email support, but I will be there for you if something has happened that is making you feel freaked out or stressed out or worried in any way. I'm happy to answer those questions. But if you have, if you have any more questions about Galactic Guides or how to connect or anything like that, please just come into the Facebook group. And if you're not already in the circle, then come and join us, and then you have access to that as well. Okay, that's it from me and from the Syrians who have been here as we've been doing this, as we've been chatting today. I'm sure they're bringing through loads of good stuff for you at the same time, and I'm just sending you so much love and light.